Samurai were warriors, but the Bushido code that they followed was not so much about fighting as it was about discipline, honor, and personal integrity. For us as developers and technical data professionals, there's a lot that we can apply from this mindset. So in this video, I'll walk through the 7 virtues of Bushido and how those can apply to our technological work. If you're new here, I'm Alex and I'm a data engineer. My goal with Zazen Codes is to help you become a more well-rounded developer. I'm teaching full-stack data science and sharing my Zen lifestyle ideas. I've recently created a Zen guide for developers and I'm really happy with how it turned out. So I'd love to send you a copy of that if you sign up for my free weekly email newsletter, or if you support me on Patreon, you'll also get access there. I'd love for you to get your hands on it and let me know what you think. I will start this video with a historical introduction of Bushido. And of course, I don't speak Japanese, so my pronunciation is not going to be great on this word. It's synonymous with the way of the warrior, and it came about in the Edo period, which is around 1600 to 1850 or so. And it's a moral code concerning samurai lifestyle, behavior, and attitudes. It's an overarching term for all of the codes, practices, philosophies, and principles that come along with being a samurai, with samurai life. So the first principle is integrity. Let's think about integrity in the context of a machine learning system. The first thing to think about is data integrity. This is like the core of your system. Your model is based on that data. So can you trust that data? Like, are you feeding the right data? Is it complete? Are there gaps? And the idea with integrity is that, like, when you notice these problems, you don't just overlook them or put them aside. Looking at the model results, we can also think about integrity on the other side of the model, on the output side. Like, is what's coming out of the model correct in all cases that you've tested? Or have you tested some cases where you're seeing something that doesn't look good, but you're not talking about this, you're not telling anyone about it, you're just kind of hiding it? It's like an ethical issue that comes from being dishonest, from not having integrity in the work that you're doing. So you got to own up to all of the weaknesses of your model as well as all of its strengths. The next Bushido virtue is courage. Courage isn't just about doing something difficult, right? It's about doing something difficult when you know that you might fail. So there's like maybe getting into my cold shower, like I talked about in my morning routine video. That's pretty difficult, but I don't know how courageous it is because there's nothing really that's gonna go wrong, right? It's just like you just get into the cold water, you get out, you know what's gonna happen. I think courage is more nuanced than that. It's like you know that it might go wrong. Like, I'm approaching a new project that I've never done before, and I'm going to be courageous enough to like tackle that full on and, you know, make claims that I can solve that problem. That's courage, because you might not be sure that you can do it. I heard a quote from my friend the other day. You're basically never going to have the experience that you need until after you need it. So we got to be courageous and just do these things. Another example of being courageous in work would be to challenge the norms of your organization, or to just stand up for your point of view and your approach to doing something. You know, interpersonal relationships are really difficult, and there's kind of always this power struggle. And especially when what you want to do goes against what people above you in the organization are trying to do, or what they think is best, there's going to be all these small, strange little problems that you're going to have to deal with. Ultimately, courage is the force that drives innovation and keeps us from being stuck in our comfort zone, which is super important for our development as people and in our careers. The next samurai virtue, believe it or not, is compassion. Compassion is such a great thing that we can use in our work. Like when you're getting that message that just really annoys you or something, rather than getting annoyed, you be compassionate for the person. Like, oh, you know, I have to help you with that. It's not like, oh, that's something I have to do. Why do I have to do that? It's like, oh, I mean, could you imagine if you didn't know how to do that? So feel compassionate, like, oh, they don't know, like they need my help. Like that's a really nice, a good place to give from and to do good work from, is compassion. But let's give an example of being compassionate specifically when we're using AI technologies. When we're building machine learning systems or things that are going to actually affect people's lives based on these complex algorithms, we need to think about how the people are going to be impacted. This is called called user-centric development. So if you build a model that's going to classify if someone is eligible to get a loan or to not get a loan, this has real world impacts on people. Really, the idea here is that, well, we're just dealing with code and Jira tickets and tasks in Kanban boards. The impact of that is real human beings in the real world. That's what compassion means in our work. The next samurai virtue is respect, and I'll talk about two aspects of respect in your work. The first is respecting the opinions and experience and views of everyone else at your organization. So the first step in this is like checking your ego at the door, because you might know what to do, but you're not always going to know the best thing to do. And the bigger your organization is and the more skilled people you have around you, the less often you're going to know the best thing to do. So it's good to respect the opinions and ideas of everyone else who you're working with. And this means not being too fixed in your ideas, being kind of like open to ideas. I'll also speak about respecting the time of everyone around you. So the worst thing I think you can do if you have a question is to immediately go on Slack or send an email and ask that question. Now, I get there's certain questions that you'll want to know the answer to right away, but there's two things that might happen if you sort of sit on a question for even just a few minutes. The first thing is you might just figure it out. So try that, but you also might have the opportunity to think of multiple questions for this person and then kind of batch them in one request. So as long as it's not a significant blocker on your work, as long as you don't need the answer like right away, for example, if I need an API key and I cannot continue working until I get this API key, I should probably message the person who has the right credentials or like ownership permissions to get the API key and get that rolling along. But if I could do something else and sort of just leave this one for a few hours or till the next day, then I can just write that question down for now, and then maybe I'll have some more to batch up, and I can send these as a batch request. So this is respecting people's time, which in this day where you can immediately contact anybody without even getting up and walking across the room with just a Slack message anywhere in the world, really important to be able to respect each other's space and respect the information coming into other people's spaces. And shifting gears and applying the idea of respect into our work, I think we should have a huge respect for two aspects of our work with data. And the first thing here is people's privacy, so data collection. And the best example I have for this is the iPhone. Whenever you download an app, there's this little dialog that pops up and it says, ask app not to track. So iPhone is basically blocking apps from tracking your activity, like unless you explicitly enable this. Now in this day and age, there's tons of tracking going on all over the place. You see these cookie banners on sites, you gotta accept cookies, all these regulations. These are good things. They definitely protect us, although they sort of make the internet like a hot shit show of accepting cookies, which I think we got to figure that out. But it's better than the alternative where everyone just gets tracked at every corner with no recourse that we can have. So these are like ethical decisions which are centered around respect for the user's privacy. Really important to think about that. And the other aspect of respect with data is respecting data security. Imagine I logged into my banking app and I see someone else's balance, even for just like a split second, and someone else's name. Huge violation of privacy. Also really easy to do if you're not focused on being super secure with everything that you do. And for certain industries, this has higher stakes than other industries, of course. Another example of privacy is data leaks. And you see this sort of stuff all the time on the news, and it has like really big impacts on those companies and on the people. I was involved in a data leak with like a trading platform, and I get calls all the time because of that leak specifically. The next samurai virtue is honesty and sincerity. I'm going to give an example of this with respect to training a model, but you could apply this to many different aspects, for example, scientific research. You could also apply this to many different ideas in your own work, but here's just one example that I want to give you. So say you were told to train a bunch of different models, like you're kind of doing a grid search search thing with different hyperparameter options. But this is going to be a really expensive operation, and it's going to take all night, and it's not something you have the budget to do like every day. In fact, you kind of only want to do this once and then get the results you're looking for. And so your supervisor gives you the list of parameters to run, and you configure the jobs and you run them. And the next day you wake up and you're looking at your results, and you notice that you screwed up a few of these parameters. You didn't set the right parameters. Now, you could still look at all of your results, and you could still pick the best model, and you could go back to your supervisor and say, okay, I ran the data, this one performed the best, these are the parameters that we need to go forward with. But that would be being dishonest. What you should say is go to your supervisor and say, I didn't run the complete parameters because I made a mistake. And here's the ones that I didn't check. Here's the results we got. And out of the ones that I did properly, this is the best model. But it's not complete. You know, we haven't looked at all of them. Now, the downside of being honest like this is that you will get judged on your mistake. Like, it's true. You made a mistake. Your supervisor is going to recognize that. The business is going to feel that impact, and it's your fault, right? But a good business, like a business that has an ethos of success and has a really good culture, like a business you want to be part of, is not going to hold that against you. And it's actually going to be happy that you were honest about your mistake. So in behaving this way and owning up to your mistakes, you have to accept a little bit of pain. Maybe there's no pain, but you don't know that ahead of time. And it could be a situation where there's going to be a lot of pain. But you're saying, I'm just going to take that up front and I'm going to own up to whatever happened here. And you're sort of like front loading that. Whereas if you don't tell the truth, and in this case with the model and the hyperparameters, you know, maybe in the back of your mind, you're thinking always, maybe we could be doing better. Maybe I should have used a different hyperparameter set, right? So it's just kind of going to sit there. Oh, maybe someone will find out someday, right? And then it's like a worrying thing, which is really bad, right? And plus you're behaving dishonorably, which I'm going to talk about next. And so that's my anecdote about being truthful and sincere in your work. And now I want to use the rest of this section to rant about AI. Okay, so in the past, I've experienced this for years, you know, companies using AI as a hype piece for their product. And I'll give a specific example. I was doing SEO and we were looking for a copywriting tool. So this is like automated copy generation. And I've built things like this. And the one I built was actually very much inspired by this product that we were looking at. And we were on a call with this team who were selling this product as an AI service. And I asked them, okay, so your copywriting tool, you know, what is the AI component here? Like, do you have a machine learning model doing something? What's it doing? And how this product worked is that it would create your copy for you, and it would switch in synonyms. So it would take certain words and it would periodically change those for different words, like synonyms, in order to change the copy and keep it fresh over time. So you might run this once a month in order to like change the words in your blog post so that the ranking engine gets like a fresh signal on that content. Now, I think there is benefit to doing this type of approach, but this story is specifically about that company using AI in their marketing language. And I asked them, what's the machine learning component? Well, their system was largely driven by templates. So you would write out the template for the copy ahead of time, and then they would automatically switch in synonyms. And so what they told me was, oh yeah, our machine learning component is about choosing the right synonyms. And I was like, what? Like, that's like a hash map, right? You have the synonym word and then a list of other options. And I get that ranking those other options could be a machine learning problem, but it doesn't seem particularly difficult. For example, you could just probably rank them based on frequency, and that would get you pretty close, right? This was before the days of language models. Now, I don't want to totally sewer that company because, yeah, it's possible that they were doing some interesting machine learning stuff in that part, but I was able to write a system, you know, really straightforwardly, swapping out synonyms with no machine learning whatsoever, just using basic like if-else type logic. So I think being honest and sincere is also about not like misusing marketing language around AI and machine learning unless you're really using those in your systems in a significant way and they're giving you significant benefit over the base case of, your naive kind of simple heuristic model, which would often give you very good results with no machine learning whatsoever. It kind of reminds me of using like a performance enhancing drug. If everybody else is doing it around you, you pretty much have to do it to keep up. And I think largely that's what we're seeing in the world. So I still don't hold it against these companies, but we should at least be aware of this. And I think to do work in the most honest way, we shouldn't be overhyping it with like artificially inflated ideas of artificial intelligence in our products. And this leads me really nicely into the next idea I want to talk about, the samurai virtue of honor. Honor is about taking pride in your work and holding yourself to a high standard. And I think this is a really strong sort of way to embolden your sense of identity and your sense of value in your community, is to behave honorably. Just to get right to the root of it, I think it's a really good way to be happy. So any way we can seek out honor in our work, I think we should go for that. So I'll take some examples of that. The first thing you can do is take responsibility when something goes wrong. And I talked about that example of using the wrong hyperparameters. Another way you can behave honorably is to create awesome stuff that's going to outlive you. Like when you're working in it with a company, you want to build things there that will keep running even if you're not around anymore. So you're doing a contract work and you build something for a company, but in the back of your head, you're like, as soon as I leave, as soon as my contract's up, all of this work is just going to, get sucked into the ground. Like none of this runs without me anymore. That's really dishonorable of you, right? You should be at least upfront with that and say, hey, you're relying on me for these things. What's the plan when I leave? Maybe we should re-architect the system, or maybe we should get more people involved so that this stuff can keep running without me. An external guide that you could use to behave honorably would be to think about your reputation. And this is how others perceive you. But by behaving honorably, you know that you're building a good reputation. And so anything you do that would hurt your reputation is probably not something that's very honorable to do. This is a thing you can align with. And speaking of reputation, that leads us into the final samurai virtue, which is loyalty. I want to talk about loyalty at two levels within your organization or your business. The first is being loyal to your coworkers and to your peers. And then the second is being loyal to the organization as a whole. So let's talk about both of these things separately. With respect to being loyal to your peers, the example I'm going to give is talking about someone behind their back. Well, when you do that, when you're in the act of doing that, you get this feeling, right? It's like a bad feeling, oh, this feels wrong. I'm not being nice to somebody. And this type of thing has a way of coming back around to you, whether it be written or in a personal communication with someone. Try to avoid, I think, talking behind people's backs. I don't think that's a very loyal thing to do, because ultimately we're all in this together. So that's what brings me to my second point, thinking about loyalty towards your organization or your business as a whole. When working for a company, especially a really big company, maybe it can be easy to lose track of the individual versus the community of it, right? Because you could say, oh, I don't care what's happening to my company, because me personally, I'm doing just fine. So no problem there. This is not loyal. This is not being loyal. Being loyal is saying, my company's not doing so well. What can I do to help with that? Because we're all in it together. You're in this community of people who are all affected by this kind of bigger thing. Maybe think of it as you're on a ship and you're sailing along with your crew and you know how to swim. So if something happens, you can always kind of swim off, and you also have other friends. There's other ships that you're friends with, so maybe you can swim onto their ship and you're gonna be fine, right? But what about all the other people on your ship? You're friends with them. These are your people, right? So you should probably do everything you can to keep your ship floating and to be successful on your ship, because you care about all these other people around you, right? So this is being loyal to your crew, to your company, to your organization. So obviously this loyalty, it's a virtue. It's a thing that is, it's a higher calling, if you will, right? It's maybe not something that's always going to come naturally, but it's something we should seek to act like or to achieve. But let me motivate this a little bit with human nature. So we care about our sort of sphere of understanding and connection. For example, this is sad, but right now in the world, there's really hard things happening. Like somebody just lost their dog in an accident, and they're dealing with that. I'm talking like right now, that's happening. But I'm not sad about that because I don't know about it. I don't know the person. I don't know the details of the situation. But now let's say that happens to one of my family members. I know all of the details of that situation, and that it's gonna hurt me, right? Like I feel that a lot closer because of locality. I'm like connected to that event, and that's human nature. It's hard to feel about things that we're not directly connected to. That's why when you see a video of something sad happening, it impacts you a lot more than when you just hear about it, because it connects you closer to that thing that's happening. And so in our organizations, our companies, we're very connected to all of these things, to all of these people. And so we're going to feel better. We're going to feel a stronger sense of community. We're going to feel more virtuous. We're going to feel more honorable when we are loyal to all of those people, all of the people that we're connected to. So that closes out the last of our 7 samurai virtues of Bushido, the way of the warrior, but applied to our work as technical data professionals and developers. So let me remind you of what these 7 virtues are. Integrity, courage, compassion, respect, honesty, honor, and loyalty. If you've got this far in the video, I'd appreciate it if you give me a like and consider subscribing, and let me know what you'd like me to make a video about next. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you find these ideas helpful in your work and in your life. Namaste.